Welcome to Disaster in Bangkok, Thailand, Part 2. And if you haven't watched Part 1, I would recommend that you go back and look up Part 1. And as you can see, I've got my Thailand t-shirt on now, but I'm not in Thailand. I'm in my room in New Zealand. Okay, and there's a whole lot of junk over there that shouldn't be in my picture. There we go. I'm still not right. Okay. I like to be in the middle of the shot, but never mind. So this is part 2 of my disaster in Bangkok, and it is now New Year's Eve, so this is the last day of the year 2025. Okay, I'm going to have to pause here because I forgot to pick up my notes. Okay, only 9 pages of notes. Okay, so I'll come back in a second. Anyway, I went to the hospital, Bumrungrad International Hospital, in a taxi, just to check out the hospital and what it was like and where it was and should I get another hotel. So I caught the taxi to the hospital, which was nice, and I went into the hospital and I had to ask, where do I go? I had to go into one area. There's about 3 buildings to this international hospital, and the taxi just drops you off at the front, and you have to choose which building to go into. So I went into the closest one and asked them, where do I go for, advice about treatment? And they told me to go over to building number 3 and go up to the 2nd floor and make inquiries there. Okay, so that's what I did. But before I carry on, I'll just show you a couple of photos I took while I was waiting in the waiting area. And in the waiting area, there's a whole lot of chairs, comfortable chairs that you can sit on, couches and stuff like that. And there's also a Starbucks coffee lounge there, so if you feel like you need a coffee, you can go into Starbucks and have a coffee. And upstairs, once you've gone up the elevator, there's a McDonald's shop at the top. Very healthy. A McDonald's shop. And there's also a Japanese food shop, which I didn't try. And there's another sort of area that you can go into and get all sorts of Thai meals. Of course, I went in there for Thai meals, and I got sent back out again because they don't take any money in there. You have to go back to the cashier that's at the door, and you have to buy a ticket. Well, I don't know if it's called a ticket, but it's some sort of pass or a card that you have to load up with money, and then you go into the main forecourt area, and then you can order a meal, and they take the price off your card. And of course, when you go back out after the meal, you can redeem whatever money's left over. But the whole business is a bit of a hassle. But anyway, that stops the staff from having to, or the cooking staff from having to handle money. So I guess that's why they do it. But just at this point, I'd just like to stop and show you a photo of the place so that you got an idea of where I was. I don't think I took this photo at the beginning because I was too panicky about trying to find my way around. But later on I took this photo. Okay, so I'll pause it now. As you can see, this is quite an amazing place. This picture just shows It's not actually the waiting room for the doctors. It's just a lounge that people can just sit around and drink coffee or look at their phones or whatever. They don't have to be actually going anywhere. They can just sit here and enjoy the place. And as you can see, it's really quite spectacular. And off to the right, which you can't see in this picture, is a Starbucks coffee lounge. You can go in there and order a coffee or cakes or whatever, and you can go around the back of the coffee lounge and enjoy the privacy in there, or you can come back out here and sit in the nice chairs and enjoy your coffee. So after sitting here looking at this, you can go upstairs, and upstairs there, the mezzanine floor that you can see, that's where the McDonald's is, and some other food places, and you can sit there and look down at this area down here, and that's where the Japanese restaurant is and where the Thai food court is. And if you want to go and see your doctor, you've got to go up another floor again to what they call floor 2. Okay, so that's what we'll discuss next. So hopefully I've figured out how to edit this video and put in a picture of the hospital. But I went upstairs to the second floor and I asked about, how do I get treatment, etc. And I had to be interviewed by this quite nice Thailand lady in English. They can all speak English in this hospital, so it's really good quality. And she asked me a whole lot of questions about what I wanted and what I wanted to do and blah 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 blah. And they said, okay, here's I think they gave me a form, and I went all the way. They said go up the end of this corridor. It's a very nice corridor. Went up to the end, and there was a special waiting room there for people who wanted to see a doctor. So I waited there for quite some time, and there were a lot of other people there. And finally I got to see a doctor. Somebody came and told me to go to room blah 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 and see the doctor. So I went in there and saw the doctor and told her that I wanted to have some bloodletting done. And she said, well, come back on Saturday and we'll do some tests, because we're not going to take blood off you without doing our tests first. So you've got to come back on Saturday and we'll do all these tests, and then we can decide whether to do the bloodletting or not. And I said, well, actually, on Saturday I'd quite like to move from the hotel I'm in to a hotel that's a lot closer to this hospital. Then I don't have to catch a taxi each time I come, because I was expecting that I'd be coming like at least once a week to have the bloodletting done. The proper name for it is venesection, and another name is phlebotomy, which all three mean they just take blood off you. It is meant to be good for you, well, for someone with iron overload anyway. And also people with iron overload can still donate blood, because the blood's quite good. So I told this doctor that I wouldn't come back on Saturday, which I was surprised they'd do anything on a Saturday anyway. And I said I will move from the hotel I'm in to a hotel closer to the hospital on Saturday, and I'll come back on Monday. So that's what I did. I went back to my hotel on Friday night, and then on Saturday I caught a taxi again. Well, I checked out of that particular hotel and I found another hotel that was right next door to this hospital that I wanted to go to. So I went to this hotel, and it was a bit more expensive than the one I'd been in, and I said, "Oh, have you got a swimming pool and a gym?" And they said, "No, we're only a 3-star hotel, not a 5-star hotel." And so I sort of was a bit surprised at that because of the price. But the reason that they were such a high price is because they were really close to the hospital, which is handy for anybody who wants to be near the hospital. So I booked in anyway, and of course I stayed the night in that particular hospital. Oh, I keep calling it hospital. That particular hotel, and I spent the night in this Saturday night in this new hotel, and the hotel itself was very nice, or the room itself was very nice looking, and I've taken some photos of that particular room, so that's what I'll show you now. Okay, so as you can see, this is actually quite a nice hotel room. They even put out some really nice towels for me. I don't know how they folded them up to look like that. The view out the window was not one of the greatest views. This is the view that I had. Not exactly spectacular, up in the power pole. Okay. The kitchen was quite nice, where you went to for your meals. There's nobody sitting here, but quite nice tables, but I sat round the corner. Okay. This is just the breakfast time, and you could help yourself to whatever was in those hot pots. And of course I must be one of the best people because I like to eat. Okay. Of course there was a whole lot of stuff you could help yourself to for breakfast, including toast, which I had to watch somebody else do the toast because I couldn't figure out how to work the machine. But it was all very nice. This is a picture of one of the meals I had. It was very nice. Rice as usual. Okay. And I must have ordered a cheesecake and coffee for dessert. So very nice. Finally, as I was starting to run out of clean clothes, I asked the hotel if they had a laundry service, and they did. And I was very impressed because all of my t-shirts and clothes came back in plastic bags and looked absolutely fantastic. So I was very impressed by this service. That's all for now. Well, as you can see, you can't see, but I now have a new t-shirt on. Well, it's not actually new. It was given to me by my neighbour. So I very rarely buy my own t-shirts. They're all given to me. But I thought I'd mention that also that it's now the 5th of January 2026. So it takes me a long time to do these videos. And then I have to edit them, blah, 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 blah. So to carry on from where I left off, I moved into this hotel, and you saw the photos of my hotel room, quite nice. And that night I had a great deal of trouble sleeping because when I tried to go to sleep, I was having trouble breathing again. And even if I took my inhaler, which, where is it? In my pocket, which looked like that, is my inhaler. I'd take a couple of puffs of that, and my breathing would get a little bit better, but not, not really good. So I ended up staying awake the whole night, and that was very frustrating because the next day the next day was Sunday, which I had off, but because of my not being able to breathe properly, I decided to go to the nearest pharmacy, or what we here in New Zealand call chemists, but over there they're called pharmacies in Thailand. And the nearest pharmacy was actually right behind the hospital. So I was able to walk right through the hospital, out the side, and I asked the chemist if he had any asthma medication. Now in Thailand, in many other countries, you're allowed to get certain medication straight from the pharmacist. You don't have to go to a doctor first and get a prescription, which is fantastic. So I asked this chemist if he had any medication for asthma, and he gave me a couple of new round inhalers and some pills to take, blah 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 blah, which was quite good. And I had lunch at the hospital in fact, that last picture I showed you of a meal and cheesecake, that may have been at the hospital, may not have been at this particular hotel. So I quite often ate my lunch and dinner at the hospital because I had the choice of McDonald's, Japanese restaurant, or the Asian food court. Fantastic. How do you do this three? Like that. Okay. And so that might have been that. And I think Sunday I just ate at the hospital, and I came back home, and back to the hotel. And again, on Sunday night, despite all this asthma medication that I was taking, I still couldn't breathe during the night, and I developed a cough as well. So I was coughing and having trouble breathing all night long, and I couldn't sleep because, well, if you can't breathe properly, you can't sleep because you have to concentrate on breathing. If you go to sleep, you stop breathing. So that was a problem on Sunday. And then, so that was actually the beginning of my disaster in Bangkok, but there's a lot more to come yet. So, after not sleeping both Saturday night and Sunday night, it was now Monday, and I needed to go to the hospital to have these tests done before I could get my bloodletting done. So I went to the hospital, which was only next door, and I had to go to the counter again and ask, where do I have to go for these blood tests? And I said, oh, I'll go up to the third floor of this building. So I went up to the third floor of this building, and then the staff there said, what exactly tests do you want? And, well, I wasn't sure what tests I needed to get because I wasn't told. So they gave me a great big chart, which I will try and take a photo of at some stage, with a whole list of different tests that they can do, and down the bottom was the cost, and a huge big chart with all the different tests they can do. And on the other side of the chart was a plan, all the different plans you could get. And of course, the one I was recommended to get was the holistic chart, which was just about everything, test for everything, which I did not really want that because I've already had lots of tests done in New Zealand for free. And I knew that I had heart failure, I knew that I had iron overload, and I knew that I needed a venesection, and that's all I wanted. So I said this to the staff. I said, I don't need all of these tests. I just want certain tests done. And they said, well, if you don't want one of these plans, you'll have to go back to the doctor and ask which tests you want done. So I had to go all the way back downstairs, across to the other building, building 3, up to the second floor, and go into the waiting room for doctors and ask to see the doctor that I saw on Friday. And so eventually I got into that room to see this particular doctor and explained to her that I didn't want all of these tests done. I just wanted to be bled, which is very simple, not complicated like they tried to make out. And so she asked me to lie down on the bed, so I lay down, and one of the questions asked me a whole lot of questions, but one of the questions was, when did you last have a colonoscopy? And I said, I've never had a colonoscopy. And she says, oh, you're over 65. You should have at least one colonoscopy a year. I said, no, I don't want a colonoscopy, thank you. I just want to be bled. And so I had to go down to another room and have blood tests done. And then I had got to go back to the doctor. And she looked at my blood tests and she says, oh, yes, you've definitely got too much iron in your blood. What about your liver? How's your liver? And I said, well, I don't know. Nobody's tested my liver. She says, well, how about we do a liver scan? And I said, oh, how long do I have to wait for that? And she said, oh, we'll do it now, which is unbelievable for me, because normally when you want a scan of anything in New Zealand, you have to wait 3 to 12 months for a scan to be done. So we went down to this other room and she did a special little scan, and she came back and said, oh yes, your liver is in a bad state. You've got fatty liver disease and you need a blood letting done, which is venesection, which is a proper name for it. So I was ecstatic. Finally I found someone who said I could have a blood letting done. So she says, come back on Tuesday and we'll send you to another doctor, a haematologist, who will arrange for the bloodletting to be done. And I thought, wow, fantastic. So I went back down to, I can't remember, but I think I went to Starbucks again, had another coffee and cake, and I think I went back to the hotel, and I think I came back to the hospital for something to eat, because it seemed to be the best place to go for meals. So what happened after that? After that, I went back to the hotel and I had to try and get to sleep on Monday night. And once again, as soon as I was in the hotel room, I couldn't breathe, and I was coughing even worse, and my breathing was getting even worse. And I spent another whole night of not being able to breathe, despite all the asthma medication that I was taking. And I said, you're supposed to take that inhaler that I showed you. Where is it? You're only supposed to take that inhaler once every 4 hours. Well, I was taking it every hour because I was having so much trouble breathing, which I knew was wrong, but when you need to breathe, you need to breathe. And I was taking the other inhalers that the doctor gave me and the other medication that he was giving me. So I was really doubling, tripling up all my asthma medication and taking my normal medication that I'd got from New Zealand. So things weren't looking too good. So anyway, Tuesday, I went back to the hospital and I went and found out where the haematologist is, which was another room on another floor. And I went into the haematologist's waiting room, and it was absolutely jammed packed with people. So I don't know what all their problems were, but I had to wait. I had to go to the counter and they told me to wait, and I managed to find an empty chair to sit in while I waited for this haematologist. And while I was waiting for the haematologist, I was so tired because I hadn't slept on Saturday night, Sunday night and Monday night. That's 3 nights of no sleep. And I finally got in to see, well, what happened was I fell asleep in my chair. Unbelievable. Anyway, while I was asleep, I could hear this voice saying, Mr. Nielsen, Mr. Nielsen. And I said, oh, and I managed to wake myself up, and there was this receptionist there. She'd been calling me from the reception, but I hadn't answered. And so she managed to find me and wake me up and say, the haematologist is ready to see you right now. So I went into the haematologist, and sat down with her and had a little chat. Said I needed to have bloodletting done. She said yes, you've been authorised to have a bloodletting done, but the doctor has recommended that you only have 2 venesections. Well, I needed more than 2. I needed to have 1 a week in order to get my iron levels down. And anyway, she said, even though I said, okay, well, at least I'll have 2. And then she said, well, the trouble is, you're obviously not very well. So I must have looked pretty terrible, not having slept for 3 nights, not breathing properly, and coughing. And she said, we can't give you a bloodletting while you're feeling so unwell. So I'll give you some a prescription for more medication for your breathing, which she gave me. And I said to her, look, I've travelled halfway around the world to get this bloodletting done. So travelling all that distance is a complete waste of time if you say I can't have a venesection. And all she could do was say sorry and gave me the prescription and said you need to get better before you can come for a venesection. So I went out again and I went to the same pharmacist out the back of the hospital, because if you get your medication from the actual hospital, it's very expensive. Well, it's expensive enough at the pharmacy, but even worse in the hospital. So I went to the pharmacist again and got some more medication that the doctor had recommended. Took that home. Took that back to my hotel, and took all that medication. And I must have had another meal at the hospital. And then Tuesday night was another night where I couldn't breathe. I had a really bad cough, despite all the asthma medication I was being given. And so Wednesday rolls around eventually, and because I had the hotel room had coffee and coffee mate, which is like milk, but it's not really milk, it's something else. I wanted to go out and get some proper milk for my coffee. So with all the coughing and hacking, I was a wee bit worried about going out again because I didn't know if I was going to make it. So I went down. Oh, I've missed out one little bit. I went down to the reception and I said, no, before I went to the reception, sorry about this, I might have to redo this. But anyway, I looked up on my laptop, what are the main triggers for asthma? And I got the answer back off the computer, and it said the main triggers, a big long list of triggers that I already knew about because I'm allergic to chickens, feathers, goose feathers, and rabbits, and very dusty conditions, like if I'm helping someone shift house. I always make the mistake of offering to help shift house, and when I'm shifting all their furniture, it's so dusty, I end up getting an asthma attack again. Anyway, one of the triggers, just one, was you can be allergic to the dust coming out of the air conditioning, especially if it's unclean. So I went down to the reception and I asked them if the filters had been cleaned on the air conditioning. And they said, yes, sir, we clean the filters after every client has left, ready for the new client. So I don't know if that was true or not, but I had to believe them, couldn't say otherwise. And went back to my room and did some more trouble breathing and coughing. And I looked at this list of triggers again. And guess what? I think at that stage I went outside and to get my milk for my coffee. And I had to go to the 7-Eleven, which was just next door, or virtually underneath the hotel. So I went in there and bought some milk. And when I was outside, I thought, oh, being outside is going to make my breathing even worse, because where this hotel was a one-way, I think it was 3 or 4 lanes, one way, and the traffic was just completely almost stationary. So I thought, I'm probably going to get a whole lot of pollution from the Bangkok traffic, and the pollution would make my asthma even worse. But when I was standing outside, believe it or not, I could breathe really well despite all that pollution. I was out in the fresh air, I could breathe well, my coughing stopped, everything was great. So I was amazed at that, and I went back up to my room with my milk and as soon as I was in the room again, I started having trouble breathing and a lot of coughing. So I looked up on my laptop again that what are the triggers for asthma, and right down the bottom of the list was formaldehyde. Now, I've never known this before, but when I looked up formaldehyde on the computer again, it said that formaldehyde is used as a glue to stick things like wood veneer to the wall or the floor or whatever. And I thought, this room is covered in wood veneer. And I took another video of my room showing all the wood paneling in my room, which I will edit this video and put that video in so that you can see how bad my room is. So I'll pause it here. Hi folks, excuse my cough. This is just a quick video to just demonstrate how much wood paneling there is in my hotel room, which many hotel rooms are like this. This is the floor, that's the front door to my room, and all wood paneling tiles, and then wood paneling up there, right across, and down there. That table doesn't have any wood paneling, just real wood. But then up above, wood paneling where the mirror is, and wood paneling on this little LED chair under the TV. So that's just to give you a quick idea of how much wood paneling is in these hotel rooms. Okay, hopefully I've added that video in and I'll carry on. So I now knew that the reason why I was having so much trouble breathing was because I was in a wood panelled room. It really was seriously wood panelled. So I decided, despite being close to the hospital, I would move to a different hotel. I wasn't being given a venesection anyway, so I might as well move to a further away hotel. So the next day, which was now Wednesday, I decided to catch a taxi down to first of all I booked in on book.com. I booked into another hotel that was fairly close to where I was, and I caught a taxi because there was no way I was going to walk to that hospital. I don't think I would have survived. I wouldn't have made it. And so I booked another taxi, went outside and caught the taxi down to this other hotel on Wednesday, and went into that hotel. And again, I asked them if they've got a gym or a swimming pool, and they said no, we haven't got either. We're only a 3-star hotel. So I asked if I could have a look at the room, and they showed me a spare room that they had, and there was no wood panelling in this particular room. So I stayed in that hotel, and I can't remember where I had a meal or not, but I think I might have walked down the road a little bit to a restaurant and had a meal there. And that particular night, which was now Wednesday night, so I hadn't slept on Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. I hadn't slept for 4 nights, so except for sleeping in the haematologist's waiting room, which was only 10 minutes or so. Well, I think it was, might have been longer. Anyway, I had no trouble sleeping in this particular room of this new or not new, but another hotel, and it was amazing because there was no formaldehyde, so I had no trouble sleeping. So I think I might finish my video at this point because it's getting quite long already, and I'll give you the continuation of my disaster in Bangkok, because the disaster hasn't actually happened, but the beginning of it was those breathing problems in the formaldehyde filled hotel room. So I'll give you a Spock, live long and prosper, just to prove that I haven't got a stroke and I can move my left hand. Okay, bye for now until part 3. Okay, bye.